I don't know what else to say, so I'm just gonna clap. Hello. Continuing the tradition of ignoring the calendar, let's actually wrap up the Magical Readathon Spring Equinox 2025, see how we did, see some stats, chat a little bit, and I will also later on tell you all of the books that I've read and what I thought of them, because I've just kind of fallen behind on letting you know, but I do have the stack here, and I have read them, and I have thoughts. First things first, similarly to the end of, our sprints, thank you so much for participating, and what around. Clearly, rescuing the dragons has had the desired effect on motivation as well as working together. I am so incredibly proud of how much you've read together, how much you worked together to get those dragons rescued. If you missed the dragons, all of these successfully rescued. Not only did we rescue the dragons that we had set out to rescue, we have then also added another one because we just surpassed every goal that I thought it was reasonable enough to set, and then some more. Clearly, if the numbers were to be believed, which of course numbers is not everything, I always want to remind you of that. It doesn't matter if you read not as much as the next person. The communal spirit, and also just hopefully reading something that is really good. Our initial goal was to beat the spring semester of last year. Autumn semester is always much more demanding, so it's just not fair to compare. So the initial goal was to climb a little bit over 6 million to beat last year's spring record, which was 6,008,927 pages. Not only did we beat that by so much that we have read more pages than all of the semesters. I want to say ever, but I've only started recording from 2022, so I could be wrong, but from 2022 onwards, we have beat every single semester, be that spring or autumn, and we were just a little bit shy of actually reaching not 7, not 8, but 9 million pages. I'm just going by the official spreadsheet, and I've done my best to remove some of the duplicates that were flagged to me, but the final figure is 8,936,679 pages. I know I say this every single time, but truly very mind-boggling. I think you'll agree. This is almost 3 million more than last semester. So we truly have just gone above and beyond. We have also read 25,988 books compared to last year 17,983, so again, a significant increase in that. Is this also the most books read? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So we beat the entire record from 2022 for both pages and amount of books read. I don't know what else to say, so I'm just gonna clap. What an amazing job. I hope you had a lot of fun, and also, what is the best thing that you read? Let us know in the comments so people can just scour for some 5-star recommendations. I love it when the comment section is also useful, so anything you want to talk about there, whether that's your experience, which dragon is your favorite, or which book was your favorite that you read in the month of April, let us know. I am using the very handy data table from this person here, so thank you again for being so generous of providing this. So if anyone is curious how the graph looks like in comparison to the other years of reading, this is in comparison to the previous spring equinoxes, and Equini? I don't know. 2025 graph is in the teal color. At first I thought that the biggest difference is going to be people logging as they go, and of course there's going to be part of that as well, because you can see the previous years there's a steep incline at the very end when people log all of their books at once. However, we still got that this year. We still got that, and I want to say, the angle is similar-ish, so I think we just read more overall. Which is really fantastic to see. This seems like a good place to mention to not forget to award yourself 50 Guild Reputation points succeeded this semester, and either shop now for some goodies in the Guild Emporium or save those points for the Autumn Equinox if you need some extra help from the scrolls provided. But just remember to add 50 points for that, and if you are participating in, where is this thing? The Year of Eldia, remember that every time that you read a book for this and succeed in continuing your path for the yearly readathon, I will link it down below if you missed it. I mean, It is May now, but I'll still link it just in case. You also get 10 points every time you read a book for that as well. If you're curious, a rough estimation of how many people participated in from each guild, obviously Order of the Crescent has always been the most populated guild, and so from this data it looks like there's about 1,475 members in the Order of the Crescent actively logging the books, and then in the second place there's House of Arcane with 900 people, and then we have the Archivist with 105, and the last is the Mindwalkers with 769, which I think is interesting because if I remember right, previously the Archivist used to be the least populated guild, but now the Mindwalkers are the underdogs, so Davantia's right there with you, right there with you. Order of the Crescent read about 10,000 books just by themselves, and then the Archivist House of the Arcane read about 5,500 books, and the Mindwalkers about 4,900 books. Looking at the books per student, it seems like Order of the Crescent have actually read the highest average of books per student, which is 6.78, but the numbers are fairly similar. What is slightly different this time around is the pages per student. I feel like historically we had the Archivist reading the chunkiest things. But this time, and literally by a hair, I think the Order of the Crescent actually took the lead on that department, which is very interesting to see. We, of course, have to give a mention to these reading machines, honestly. You see your character here. Please award yourself 10 points for this huge contribution towards our page goal. I mean, those numbers are genuinely incomprehensible, so very well done. And then one of my favorite things to look at for the wrap-up is what are the books that we have read the most in this semester. I think, surprise to probably no one, Sunrise on the Reaping was actually logged 307 times and came as the most read book of the semester. And you know what? I actually contributed to this, and I feel very smug about it because I feel like I normally don't. I feel like I belong for the first time ever. Secondly, there was a Natural History of Dragons. This makes sense as well because it was one of the book club book, as well as having a dragon prompt and a dragon theme. So I think it makes perfect sense, but it was read 288 times. And then another book club book came in the third place, which was Blood Over Bright Haven, with 135 instances of it being logged. So this being a very anticipated release makes absolute perfect sense. I'm also really pleasantly surprised to see book club books actually being read together. It brings me so much joy because I always go into these trying to make us readers feel like we are a community as the main goal. Of course, sharing the spot with enjoying reading and bringing some playfulness into it. So also just very nice to see that these books are being picked up. Reminder that if you did read a book club with your fellow guild members, you also get some points for that as well. Now, interestingly, the most read authors don't always align with the most read books because obviously a lot of authors have more than one book. So the title itself might not make it into the top 3 books read, but the author, on the other hand, might. Suzanne Collins did remain in the first spot. Sunrise on the Reaping was logged 307 times, but Suzanne Collins, on the other hand, was logged 512 times, which means that people were reading other Hunger Games books. Spot number 2 also remains for Mary Brennan. Again, Natural History of Dragons was logged 288 times, whereas the author was logged 353 times, so maybe people are continuing with the series. And then in the third spot, actually, we have a different author who didn't appear in the top 3 books read. We have Heather Fawcett, logged 203 times. And this is the author of the Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies series. Well, this is probably not the series name, but you get what I mean. And that, my pals, are the stats for this semester. I'm already really excited for autumn. Let me know if you want me to continue in the similar vein to what we did this semester or switch it up. If you have any ideas, let me know down below what you would like to see as well. Again, just a massive thank you for participating and being part of this community. It would be nothing without you. So thank you very much for being here, and I hope you had a fantastic reading month in April and obviously now in May because this is so late. But for those who are also wondering how my April went, I'll let you know now. So this is my little sheet of what I actually needed. So it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 books. Pass my semester as a dream walker. I have successfully passed this, granted with a little bit of an extension, which is okay. And that's what the scrolls are for. I am now officially done with it, so That's also fantastic. Let's start with alchemy, and for alchemy I was reading Dungeon Crawler Carl, the first book. I cannot say this slowly or fast. It is a fantastic, humorous adventure, very D&D adjacent book. Essentially in this book, the world ends. Everyone from the surface of the earth, if they survive, they are put underground in this dungeon. Our main character, Carl, and his ex-girlfriend's cat, Princess Donut, are the main characters that we follow, and they start on level 1 and they try to understand what the game is. The game itself is actually televised, and there's some weird alien technology happening where the other aliens watch this essentially as a reality TV show. So we have some interviews with them that then gets them sponsors. It's actually a little bit like Hunger Games, but in a more humorous side, although we do still get some moments that just feel very sad and heartfelt, which is nice because I thrive off that stuff, which is something to think about for me, I guess, in therapy. Especially considering that I don't think I was in the best mood for this type of read when I did read it. So considering all that, still a very good outcome. I think it took me longer to get through this than it normally would because of the mood that I was in. I would start daydreaming and my mind would drift away from whatever's happening in the book. Sometimes I felt it was a little bit too descriptive for my liking because we're constantly moving, and you guys know as a reader I don't love books that are constantly moving because then naturally we spend a lot of page time describing what's around us because what's around us has changed. So it makes perfect sense why that's the case, but for me as a reader, that's not always what I'm necessarily thriving off. Despite that, this is a series that I will be continuing. It is very humorous, which I think will be a hit or a miss depending on your personal preference. Some of the jokes were a little bit like whatever, but some of them were very chuckle-worthy. And I personally do like humorous books, so this did work as a strength. I also hear that the overall balance and tone does improve further in the series, which makes sense because authors obviously improve as they write, as well as finding your footing in the type of genre that this is. So I'm excited to continue. Also, hilariously, Logan read the entire bloody series, which I think there's like 7 books or something already out. So I think it's fair to say that he's definitely enjoyed this. Then for Art of Illusion, I had Sunrise on the Reaping, and this felt like such a nostalgic dip into something I didn't even realize I was necessarily nostalgic for, and I don't have a lot of that left in my life. So generally I had the best of times and the worst of times, considering all the emotional damage that this has done. I do think it is written with the fandom in mind, so for someone who has not read any other of the books, there's a lot of characters and there's a lot of fan servicing in a sense that I think would go over someone's head if they have not read the main trilogy at least. It is a companion novel. I do not think that it would stand on its own, but considering the target audience is not a standalone-esque direction, I personally felt like I was the fan who was targeted, and honestly I had the best time. Whilst this one took me forever, I flew through this. I think I read it in like 3 sittings and I genuinely had a great time. I think if I had to nitpick what was the weakest point of the story, I would say the love interest and the whole story of that. I felt like it was more so told to us than felt by us. I understand why it needed to exist there, I understand the purpose that it played, but it didn't feel as important as it should have been by the way that it was written. However, the ending of this was fantastic and it answers some questions that I know we all wanted to know, if we're better off from knowing that or just damaged. That's a different thing, but I am also really excited to see what they do with the movie, and I'll definitely be looking out for that as well. I didn't even say, but this follows Haymitch's games and his story and how he ends up being the way that he is. Now, I do think that it takes a certain level of confidence weaving a story where you know the outcome. Obviously, we are basing it around another Hunger Games, but we know who the winner is. And I think to pull off a story where normally the biggest mystery would be who's going to win, with us already knowing, it's not a small feat, you know? We replace that with the question of why is Haymitch the way that he is later on, and also continued with the themes of questioning authority and propaganda. So it was delicious. I liked it, personally. For astronomy, I had 10 minutes, 38 seconds in This Strange World, and this was a very, very hard retching story. We follow Layla, who has just been murdered, and we follow her as she recalls her life in small pieces about herself or about her friends and the found family that she has collected throughout the hardships of her life. It was a very slice of life, if you can even call it that, but it was also very touching. I read this much quicker than I thought I would have. I started this with not really sure what this is going to be about or what to expect, and then I came out of it really touched. I would say if you do have topics that are sensitive to you, it's probably going to be in this book. Definitely look out for some content warnings before picking this up if you are looking out for something. It's very bittersweet. It's very maddening in parts. It touches upon a lot of heavy discussions, but I would say in a quite approachable way. I would recommend this book to a lot of people, but definitely go into it with awareness. I am also equally very excited that we had this prompt of random country generator, because if not for that, I don't know when I would have read this. It's one that I was very excited to try, and then it was a little bit of a back burner. So if not for the prompt, I don't know when I would have picked this up, and I am actually very glad that I did and when I did it. For spells and incantations, I had sorcery and small magics, and honestly, this was a very beautiful, cozy fantasy in my mind. We are in a magical university, which felt very fitting for the readathon setting as well. We follow two rival academics. They are different in pretty much every way that you can think of, except for the fact that they're actually more alike than you think. And when a spell goes badly and they get tied together with this forbidden magic that no one is supposed to use, none of them want to get in trouble for accidentally casting this, so they're setting out in pursuit of someone who could undo this. We have your typical sunshine, grumpy type of situation. We meet one of their family. We have a lot of heartfelt conversation. It was really easy to get into. It was really easy to read, but it genuinely just felt very delightful. I, for some reason, thought this was a standalone. It is not, and I'm actually very excited to see what the sequel would bring for this. I had a really good time with it. I like the magic system. I feel like it wasn't overbearing us with a lot of world-building details, but I still understood the world, and I was excited by the magic that I saw. I almost would classify this as a good palate cleanser, but it really just depends on what you're looking for in a situation like this. I really enjoyed it, and I'm very happy that I picked this up. It wasn't a particularly deep read. The stakes were definitely not high for the entire world. It was very much more personal level. It just felt quite well balanced for me personally, so I enjoyed it. But again, it's one of those, with cozy, I feel like it really depends when you're reading it, and I think the timing aligned quite well for me, so that was also another plus. So this is actually the last book that I read, and also was my travel book, which is why it looks like I pulled it out of a troll's ass. But Instructions for Dancing, it's a contemporary romance book. However, there is a magic element to it, so I don't know if you can call it contemporary, but other than that, it was. Maybe like magical realism. It's one of those little scenarios when someone is given a power or a curse, depends who you ask. It's there for a reason, it's there for you to learn a lesson, and then it will stop. Our main character's case, the power is that every time she witnesses someone kissing, she can see their entire love story. So from the moment they met, some key moments in the past and future, as well as their last moment, be that a breakup or death. This has come at a time where her parents are divorcing, and it's due to an affair, and her idea of this eternal love and the safety of love is completely shattered, and she just does not believe that love is worth it at all. So then this is magnified by her interpretation of these visions of seeing every couple who seem to be currently in love and happy ending up in heartbreak or heartache. It all starts when she picks up this book from the kind of exchange library thing. Can't remember how it's called, free library? And I think it is called Instructions for Dancing, and then she goes to investigate and signs up for these lessons where she meets X, the love interest. As this is young adult, it was really easy to get into and easy to read. Sometimes I could feel an adult's handwriting in the text for the teenagers on the page. From the guy's perspective, we are dealing with a grief from the main character girl. We are dealing with this whole destruction of love and parental separation. I would say it's quite a simple story, it's quite simply written, but I have to keep in mind the audience in mind, so I can't really fault it for that. I did find it a little bit clunky at points, I did find it a little bit maybe stereotypical in other times. I did have my doubts around 80%, but then the very end actually pleasantly surprised me, and it was quite a bittersweet type of situation. So I did really appreciate it for that, because I feel like we don't see that very often, and especially in YA romance. So I actually really appreciate that. I don't want to say twist, but it was a twist for me because I just did not expect it to go that way. But it was pleasant. It added to a positive experience in my case. The astronomy book was actually this, not the 10-minute one. That was Conjuration. I don't know if I said it the wrong way around, but I missed out on this one. So astronomy was A Prayer for the Crown Shy. This is technically like a second book, a psalm for the Wild Bill, which is the first kind of novella about this monk and a little robot. Surprisingly, this is by Becky Chamber, and surprisingly, I didn't really like the first one as much, but I kept an open mind because this is one of my favorite authors. I historically had a very good experience with most of their other work. And I am happy to say I am back on the I was about to say love wagon, but that just sounds very inappropriate, but I'm happy to be back in the good graces for this author. I really enjoyed this one. I enjoyed this much more than the previous one. It felt way less repetitive. I felt like it was just a warm hug. Again, not that much happens here because it's not about the plot. It's about the two characters interacting. So honestly, I'm not gonna even say anything else other than update those who were wondering. Yes, I did enjoy this again. So very pleased by that, personally. And then the last book is Best Hex Ever. This was for my Psionics and Divination book. This, actually, I went in expecting to really not have the best time with. You know what? I actually really did like it. Do I think that we could have done with fewer spicy scenes? I do. I think it would have been improved by that. However, I will give this one a pass for being so insta-love because magic is involved. So we're gonna go with the whole like meant to be type of thing. But we're following the girl who thinks that she has a hex on her, basically preventing her from finding true love, and a guy who is just recovering from a very unfortunate past relationship, and their best friends are getting married, and they are like maid of honor and the best man. I think what I enjoyed the most about this wasn't even their relationship, although I did appreciate it as well. I do think they could have used a good cold shower from time to time, because boy, are these people horny. What I appreciate the most about this was how it felt like a 90s show. Like the witchery of it all felt really familiar, because she's like a kitchen witch and she has these friends and they know about her powers. It's nothing like practical magic, but it's still at the same time it felt reminiscent of practical magic and Charmed, and being the child of those times, really appreciated it. I just felt like home. Do you know what I mean? But it was the friends and the family dynamic and spending active time with the family in question as well. I just really appreciate it. And everyone in the friend group had each other's backs in the way that was so nice to see. And I genuinely enjoyed the overall setting and the vibes and the friend groups, probably even more than the main relationship, although that's not to say that it was bad. I didn't have like the highest expectations of this, but this pleasantly surprised me and I'm happy that I read it. Was it a bit cheesy? Yes. But it was also like a really good time, and I think I also enjoyed the writing style, so that helped. I'm going to probably try this author in another book as well because I had a good time. But that is me now caught up. So thank you so much for waiting for this for so long and actually watching this. I feel like this is so irrelevant at this point, but it was nice catching up with you. Please let me know how you're doing. And I am gonna go because it's getting way too warm to be sitting here. I'll speak to you soon and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye!